Ben sighed and responded to Sarah. Old Gamson claims to have seen an awfully lot for someone who's never been more than 10 leagues outside of Farview. A demon this small can't fly. When they're this small, they don't even have wings. It's like hunting down a rabid dog. At least Ben hoped it was like that. He hadn't seen any more demons than Sarah had. In fact, it had been years since anyone in Farview had seen a demon. In the stories, there were big ones who could rip an ox in two. But Ben talked to some of the men down at the Buckhorn Tavern who'd actually been on demon hunts long ago, and it didn't sound too scary. The ones they saw weren't more than a yard tall and weren't any more dangerous than an angry bear. Reason for caution, certainly, but nothing the men couldn't handle. Sending for a hunter for something like that was unnecessary. Still, with this fog, Ben wished again that he'd brought a weapon more lethal than his quarterstaff. As the day wore on, the thick fog stubbornly remained floating throughout the forest. It was the early days of spring, and this high in the mountains the air still carried a bitter chill. Ben rubbed his arms and strained to see further into the murky white. The eerie silence was unnerving. He couldn't help but wonder where the normal birds and forest creatures had gone. He was peering so hard into the mist that he missed seeing a tree root which caught his foot and nearly sent him sprawling. He uttered an embarrassed swear and stole a glance at Sarah, who was effortlessly gliding around obstacles. Sarah spent nearly every waking moment in these woods and moved in them as naturally and silently as the animals he hunted. Ben hoped Sarah knew what he was doing. He was counting on him to be ready in case the demon came at their section of the line. The tactics for hunting a demon this size were fairly simple. Demons fed on lifeblood and had a supernatural sense for when it was near. A smaller demon would rarely attack a large group of men on its own, but if stumbled upon, it would not be able to resist charging. So the men spread out in a loose formation and stalked through the forest. When the demon was attracted, they would let the archers wound and slow it down, rush in with spears to pin it, and then finish it with an axe or sword. The demon would sense their life forces long before they would see it, but a demon is not a cautious creature. It would make no secret when it began its charge. The stories said it would bellow a challenge as it rushed towards its target. With plenty of visibility and skilled archers, there was little danger with a young, small demon. The topic of demons is not exactly dinner-table conversation, but they are a fact of life, and Farview is like any small town. There were always plenty of men at the local tavern to tell a story or two. Generally accepted knowledge of demons and how to face them was passed down with the same care and assurance as crop cycles and telling a proper weather forecast. Because he was largely ignored by Alistair Pinewood, Ben had the freedom at a young age to spend far too many hours at the Buckhorn Tavern hearing those stories. For many of the Buckhorn regulars, the young Ben became something of a tavern mascot, and they delighted telling him about demons, hunters, grumpkins, hobgoblins, wyverns, mages, the long-lived, and other stories that seemed mythical to a boy in Farview who hadn't seen anything more dangerous or exciting than logging accidents and the spring festival. Ben was certain that the most exciting and vivid storytellers like old Gamson didn't have any more experience with these things than he did, but he could never resist hearing about a good adventure. And finally, he was getting to live his own adventure, even if it was turning out to be a bit boring. For the last month and a half, many of the farmers who lived on the outskirts of Farview had reported mysteriously losing livestock. Rumors ranged from mountain lions, to bandits, to refugees, to theft by jealous neighbors, to every manner of magical creature. Last night, though, Farmer L rushed into town calling for a full meeting of the town council. Still in the middle of the square, he claimed he'd seen what was taking their livestock. L said he saw a small black shape no larger than a sheepdog dragging away one of his pigs. He started running across the yard, and when he was halfway to the creature, the full moon came out from behind a cloud, and there it was. Small, curved horns on its head and wing buds.